So we are here. We have we have two people, two of our writers. So updates are we're waiting for Margaret, Autumn, and Carol. We haven't heard from Uzma for a while. Diana is hoping to join, but again at some point, but things keep coming up. Anna is not going to be joining us anymore for health reasons, but will continue to watch the videos. Lisa has a lot of scheduling conflicts because of her work. I can't. Sherry is away. Christy is away. So I think I named everybody.
Yep.
So we're
Okay.
recording.
I guess I did just write everybody with the link just in case someone is like desperately searching for it in their old emails. Um, and I'll continue. Oh,
Oh,
Carol
here's
entered the
Carol.
room.
Yay.
Great. And Margaret, maybe it was the link. They needed the link again.
Okay.
Hi, Carol and Margaret.
Hi,
Hi,
Carol and Margaret. We're
hi.
happy to see you.
Did
I'm
you guys need the did you need the link again? Was that
yes.
what? Yes.
I had to sort
Okay.
through a lot of emails. Sorry.
No problem.
I
It
should
just occurred to us that that might be what was holding people up. So I just sent it out again to everybody, but we'll know
That's great.
next time to resend it with the message, which I didn't do. I just thought everyone had it in their calendars. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, I didn't go to my calendar, so that's a good idea.
Anyway, we're glad to see you.
We're glad to see you.
Great.
And we're
Yeah, I'm
recording.
glad to be here with you all.
Great.
Well, we still have a 2-to-1 ratio for students to instructors, so that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
It's awesome.
We went through the list, but quite a few people are traveling tonight. And then two people, Anna and Lisa, have both dropped out for reasons they just can't seem to make the Tuesday meetings. So
Anna had a head injury, and it just she's really incapacitated by it.
So it's a small group tonight. We are expecting Autumn to join us, but we're going to dive right in rather than wait any longer. And this will be fun. It gives us an opportunity to really work with you guys and to see where we can go when we have fewer people and more expansive time. So the first thing we wanted to cover was this conversation about just generally how things are going for you with the course. The questions that we sent out, what's working, what's more challenging, what's been useful for you, what you would like to see more of, what's been less useful that perhaps is not as helpful, either the process of the way the sessions have been going or the content. Like we're interested in feedback on both. And is there anything you would like us to focus on? I wrote differently or just to make sure that we cover this topic, whatever it is, before we get to the end of the class. It may well be something we've thought of, or it might not be. So we're really eager for input, and honest, critical input is great. So that we can, best serve your needs with the remaining sessions. They're not courses, sessions.
Yeah.
Does anyone feel motivated to start? Would it be more helpful? Here's a question. Is it more helpful for you to would you rather just kind of riff off on everything all at once? Or would it be helpful to go through the questions? Which
I
is
could do
easier?
either.
Yeah.
You mean like going through the questions one by one? Mm-hmm.
Sure.
That might
Like
take
there's
longer.
Yeah.
specificity to doing it that way.
Yeah, I agree. I like that
Okay,
one.
so the first question. for me, it's great. The small group breakouts have been okay. But not, I could, yeah.
Not
Okay.
great.
Yeah, I guess not great. Um, sharing writing, I like. Writing examples, I like. And the mix has been good for me.
What mix do you mean, Tracy?
The mix of during the 2 hour session about you guys talking, us guys reading, asking questions, you guys talking. It feels very comfortable.
Thanks.
Yeah. So I don't have any critical feedback for you on that first one.
I'm taking notes, by the way, Lauren, here.
I put the questions in the chat box, so I think that's great. So anyone else want to take a crack at that one? The first question or two?
I've liked the pace of it. I really like that. I think it's well organized. I like sharing the readings. The breakout sessions have kind of been 50-50 for me too. Like, it depends on what people bring to it. If people have been working on it or not. So that's been kind of 50-50. And I really like learning some specific things, some tools like symbolism and descriptive writing and that kind of thing.
Right.
I like the pace of the sessions too. I like alternating. I think with us having questions and I'm getting a little braver at doing some readings. Thanks to introductions, Lauren, it helped when you asked if I would do a reading in a little bit in advance, and that helped me kind of to take that leap. And I really appreciated the feedback from everyone. So maybe as we get farther along from this near halfway point onwards, that might help if we can hear from each other.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I'm ready now. I do like the didactic portions. I think I'm ready now for not as many elements of writing as about
Mm.
the bigger form of the writing, and dialogue. Is an essay versus a book versus, and if so, what are possible ways to distribute our writing? It may be publishing, but it might be some other form that would go to family members. So maybe as we start into the second half, think about the pieces more as a whole than as the individual parts. I think that would help me.
Well, the good news is that that's the topic of the next session, which is the different forms and self-publishing versus trying to get an agent, and what are some of the considerations that go into all that. So that's really good feedback. It's good to know. We'll cover at least part of what you've talked about.
Great.
And the larger story arc too, for me would be helpful. A beginning, a middle, and an end kind of thing.
What do you mean, Tracy?
Well, sometimes I think that I just have all these little vignettes and not enough way to tie it together. And yeah.
Thanks. Got it.
Yeah, we have a whole session on story arcs,
Great.
common story arcs and themes, some of which Margaret has already been exposed to, or actually quite a bit of it. Though we have a few other additions for, in particular, this kind of writing. But yeah, that's really good to know. Carol, what about you?
Yeah, I would agree. I've really liked the pace. It's felt comfortable. Like the pieces that you've taught have felt robust and useful. And I like the not too much large group conversation, but just a little bit feels good to me. And I think the thing that I would say about the breakout sessions is that sometimes they're too short. So it feels
Yeah.
like it's really easy for one of us to like get really on a roll, and then the other person gets like a teeny amount of time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think, maybe it's a little longer, or it's more regular. So there's actually like less to say or something like that. Um, it was really edgy for me to read from my own writing. And I did it like right at the end one evening and was like, about it, and kind of walked away really just grateful for the opportunity. So, and then I could really reflect on the writing, like having told you all of it, like then I could really reflect on the writing. So that feels really valuable to me, to have that opportunity to read a lot of my writing, actually.
Great.
Great.
Um, yeah, I think I'm kind of looking at the list there. That seems like I hit a little bit of everything there.
This is kind of jumping ahead, but it seems related. Like, Margaret spoke to wanting kind of the bigger process pictures looked at. But do other of you have do you other three have any like specific or general things that you'd like to make sure we cover before September in terms of what you're doing with your writing?
I think
Story arcs we also heard. Sorry, I wanted
Yeah.
I
to.
think I think mentorship, like, either, create a mentorship, or who do we turn to, that kind of thing. Like, because I know I won't have a completed work. I'll have some completed things, but not completed. So as it ends, how do we look toward mentorship? Maybe we seek that through each other, maybe that kind of discussion.
Yeah,
That's great.
that's kind of a cool idea, Joanna. I too had been wondering about the arc of publishing and all the ways to do that. And then I'd love to hear more about the story arc too. So I feel like those were really on topic with what I was thinking about too. So you guys already done it.
This is great. We just a kind of very process question, but are using any of the resources such as the recordings, or going back and looking at the writings, or any of the tool kits or anything like that? I see
Yeah.
everyone nodding their head.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really helpful to have a resource. Like I was literally writing, I was doing my Monday morning 3 hours, and I was like, but wait a minute, I can go back and look at this. I don't have to be like, oh, I didn't
Yeah.
get it. I don't understand. I was like, wait a minute.
Good.
That's great.
Yeah.
What about the nature activities? Has anybody, Joanna said that she's been doing some of them.
Yeah, I love them.
That other people have had this, but I have found that the writing becomes very emotional, and sometimes the emotions are wonderful, and sometimes they're really difficult. And so I don't know if you guys are experiencing that, but just to get out of the house and to just breathe, just take it in or let it out or whatever needs to happen. But I have found that it pushes some things that create a lot of intense emotions at times.
Yeah, that would be a good thing to talk about. We hadn't planned on talking about that, but I think it's a really good topic.
Anyone else experiencing that?
Mm.
Yeah, I would say I do. And through I love the way in Trumpy's first exercise, I think the way you described it is you helped us step by step to get into it. And if I'm recalling right, this the way I remember, the first step was stepping over a threshold of your door. And the word threshold really helped me to see something ahead of me that was new, and to separate all from where I was, in my desk or wherever, to the outdoors and to some place special where I was committing to leaving all those demands behind
Yeah.
and going into something precious to me. And so even that first step, I've tried to repeat that instruction to myself with each of these exercises. And I believe it helps more directly get me to the place that Joanna was just speaking about, of just more direct emotion.
Mm.
It just makes me think we might want to actually repeat those instructions each week just so that you have it on the website and don't have to go back and look at it, because creating some sort of what we would call a ceremonial space,
Right.
it just is basically a little, as you said, you're stepping out of your day-to-day mind chatter and doing something different, and you're announcing to the universe that you're doing that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we intended for that to be repeated, but I don't know that we ever verbally said that. So you picked up on it, which is good.
Yeah, thank you.
It was great.
I just want to say, Joanna, when I wrote that story about breaking my leg for the Sun, the one that I
Yes,
read last
yes.
session, I can't remember if I told you this, but the first time I worked on it for a couple of hours, so I really got into it. I had to leave to go to an appointment, and I was 2 miles down the road, and I felt myself start to disassociate. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And I mean, I was literally starting to just like sweat and tremble and shake and feel just totally out of my body. And I realized I was reliving a bit of the trauma.
Yeah.
And it was 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So it absolutely is the case that when you work on stories that have some sort of family history or personal history with any emotional impact, you don't necessarily know what's going to happen. I think a lot of people feel like writing is healing and cathartic, and it absolutely can be, but it can also be the opposite. It can be extremely triggering.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I what I recommend in those circumstances is to first of all just to notice what's happening, because sometimes the emotional response is it's like it doesn't quite connect with the mind. It's just so emotional, and it's just like, I don't want to do this. I need to get away. I think I need to go. I think I need to go to the grocery store. So, but you can do that kind of writing in short increments. Like, I'm going to go and going to work on this for 20 minutes. I'm going to light my candle while I do it, and then I don't have to do it anymore. And knowing that you could get out, that there's like a little escape portal. I think it makes it easier. And it also, it's indicative that you're onto something that's probably pretty poignant.
Yeah.
Trevi, when you wrote the Hawk story, which had lots of references to your brother because it was in his town, did that bring up emotion for you?
Oh yeah, that was hard to write. That was hard to write. And in fact, I want to write about my brother after I finish the project that I'm working on now, and I kind of dread it. I mean, I kind of want to do it, and I kind of dread it because I've known for a long time that I need to write about him. And it's a sad story.
Yeah, it is sad. Margaret, I'm wondering if, like, looking back and writing about your early experiences as an academic doing this unbelievably and surprising I don't know what you would call it, public health research. I don't know what the words for it are. Going back and looking at it, does it bring up stuff for you?
Yes. And as you were talking about Lauren experiencing a sense of dissociation, in some ways, as I've been writing this, it feels to me like academic writing is a form of dissociation.
Yeah.
I don't mean to put it that the emotional impact that we all experience, and Joanna and Deb Tribby, you've both been, referring to, but you're supposed to stand back and get this 30,000-foot view and kind of write at that level and use words that kind of just skim along in the atmosphere. It feels to me. And so trying to write, like, what did I actually feel? What was my emotional experience while this was going on is really very different.
Mm.
And, I find that at least right now, I'm angry. And I think that's a good thing. Just there's a lot of, um, I think I'm getting more in touch with my anger, I will say, about it. And just this particular story, I guess I work in the field of environmental public health, like
That's
occupation,
it.
workplace and environmental public health, and just seeing, anyway, how our earth, how humans are treated in this particular case is an example, probably not the most extreme. Just it's a new way for me to think about it. So thank you.
Yeah.
Wow, it's like you're peeling back onion layers on an experience that you had one way and wrote about it, and it defined your academic life. And now you're going back and looking at it from a wholly different lens.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think it's a lens that people will be really, non-scientists as well as scientists will be very interested to read something like that.
I hope. I value getting to read pieces just as a sounding board, because after a while I go, oh, this is so boring, forget it. So anyway.
Right. I think our last question has to do with feedback and whether, like, when, Trebi and I talked about this at breakfast the other day, is that we've mostly stuck to providing only positive feedback. And certainly we're not talking about being critical of you after you've just read your piece, saying, oh, that didn't work. That's not the kind of comments that we would ever make, and we obviously, but we have wondered if there have been a couple times when I thought, oh, there's a place where I could point out X, or Trebi had the same experience where she thought, oh, that would have been a great time to mention Y. And we have tended not to do that because most of you were just getting used to sharing publicly, but we're wondering how you feel about that. And that can actually be quite individualized, right? You say, I don't want any group feedback that feels even slightly critical, no suggestions, or would you like that because it would be helpful to you?
I would like it because it would be helpful to me. And I know that you won't say, that was dumb and your dog is ugly. So I feel like good critical feedback is pretty important.
Okay.
It's pretty important because if you don't get that, you can go down the wrong path for a long time without realizing it. And I've had that experience in my life, not with my writing, but I would welcome that because I know that you guys would deliver it in a kind and constructive way. So yeah, I'm okay with that.
The same page with Tracy on that. I think now that I feel very ready for it now that we're halfway there. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'd echo that too. Like the halfway through feels really good to kind of like turn a corner towards it. But to know that I could just share and like be like, okay, I think this is ready to share. I don't really know. Felt really good. So to now have like more critical feedback feels great. I just want to say there's something going on with my dog. She just keeps sneezing. So if I'm
Oh.
distracted by her, so I'll be back and forth for right now.
Okay.
I'd just like to mention too, you said what has been most helpful to you. And I wanted to mention that I have taken out so many words of the stuff I already wrote. I mean, it was insane. I've written this pretty big thing for my Storyworth, and I put it in chat and asked for a word count of overused words, and it blew my mind. And most of them I was able to delete, and the other ones I was able to find decent synonyms that work without like me changing the way I speak. So that was one thing. The other thing was, I don't remember who said it about reading it out loud.
Hmm.
There's no way I'm reading this thing out loud to myself, but I got an online reader, and I've been having this lovely young man read my thing back to me, and it's working out so well because I have my original on the one screen, and then when they're reading it, they go through line by line and highlight what they're reading. And I can, if I see something that's just crazy, I can just pause it. I can
Oh,
go right over to the original and fix it. And so that's been really great. I'm almost, thank goodness, almost done listening to this thing I've created over the last year. And then I have things that don't make sense or that I need to go back, and I found things that I told the same story in two different places.
Mm.
And I don't think that if I had sat down and listened to somebody just read the whole thing, I might not have caught that. If I just read each story separately as a standalone, I might have missed that. And I found two places where it was egregious. So, um, yeah, so that listening to it out loud has been really great.
So I'm curious, Tracy, how did you set that up? Was that through Storyworth or is that an
No,
AI?
there's just you go and go to readers. You can get some free ones, but I plowed through the free thing in about 5 minutes. So I paid for a month of it. The one I'm using is called naturalreaders.com.
Wow.
And it's really funny because we lost Wi-Fi while I was listening to it, and it still worked, but it said your premium voices are not available without Wi-Fi. And then it started reading it. And then we went to the store.
oh
It's like, oh,
my.
I don't think that's going to work. It was the old-fashioned computer voice.
Oh,
But
funny.
I tested out a few voices because they're all different. You can have men, women, warm, matter of fact. You get to select who you want to read to you. Some of them have a few little idiosyncrasies I didn't like. One of them never enunciated the word to. It was just like,
T-
out there. But I found one that works for me, and it was worth the $20.
That's cool.
That's cool.
And I'll just quickly add, I agree with everyone about getting more, feedback that is not just positive, but suggestions. And I've had this time, I following the instructions, I tried to include a kind of metaphor in part of a piece, and I saw how quickly in my mind I could construct this metaphor and think it was great and realize I have no idea if anyone else will get this. And so, anyway, so it's things like that where you just, kind of sneak it by people and see if it just went over anybody's head or somebody, says what would be very helpful.
That's great. Good. Well,
Okay,
it's
good.
not that like every time you read something, we would immediately start offering suggestions. We would only do this if something pops into our heads.
Yeah.
But it's also the case that when we work with you one-on-one, which, as you know, this course includes that, we will be doing a very, very much constructive picking, going through things and offering suggestions and talking to you about all that. So great. Is there anything else? Trevi, did we miss anything?
No, I don't think so.
Or
This
anyone
was
have
really
any
helpful. Really
last
helpful.
comments?
And I took notes too, so we'll have this.
Great.
Well,
Well, thank you guys. Since you pretty much get to determine the rest of the course for everybody else. Oh, the power. Okay. Yeah, okay. So what we're going to continue tonight talking about elements of creative writing techniques that we both consider the low-hanging fruit. These are the things that, like shortening your sentences, using dynamic word choice, coming up with metaphors or similes or descriptive text, all of that is part of what you can do to liven up your writing, even if you're writing about something very historical or even what you might consider not particularly scintillating. Like the topic itself is not that exciting. But writing it with these techniques can help to make the reading of it enjoyable, even if it's something that is highly technical. So the things we're going to talk about tonight are transitions, pacing, and flow. And they go together because good transitions help to make the flow of your piece work. And pacing is something that we typically don't even think about paying attention to, but is a really important aspect of writing creative nonfiction in a way that someone wants to read it. I did make a PowerPoint for this that incorporated stuff Trevi and I've been talking about. And I think rather than go through it, I'm going to post it so you can go back and look at it and pull up details out of it. It goes into a little bit more of a fulsome description of the things that we're going to be talking about. Should I just dive in, Trevi, or did you want to say something?
Well, yeah, I guess I want to say I really love making good transitions. It's one of my favorite things to do because I firmly believe that you can have any two topics separated by, by nothing and find a way to bridge them. And it's really fun to figure it out. And I'm going to give you an example. I have an example of something that I wrote, but this is something. I was in an airport yesterday morning from 4:30 to 6:30, and I was working on this piece that I'm working on about. I've been working on it for almost 3 years about the hoopoe, a bird which has a wonderful mythical history and is a real life bird. And I had gone from describing how the bird walks around, and as I watched it. Walking around in an old hotel complex in Egypt, and then I wanted to talk about how a play that I'd read by Aristophanes and going into the Cornell Library to try and find these translations of these plays, and I was working on how to make this transition, and what I ended up doing was I described, so I don't have access to the Cornell Library, so it meant I had to sneak in. And the way I did it was I said I walked something. I'm not going to get it exactly right, but the point is I described the way I walked through the library trying to find the right shelves as being like the hoopoe strutting around on this space. So it was just like, it just dawned on me after playing with this paragraph for about an hour and not getting anywhere that I could just use that simple thing. I was so pleased with myself. And I want to say also that when we were looking for good readings to include tonight, there's one that is going to be on the website that you'll find it. It's by an author named Charles Siebert, who unfortunately has only written a couple of books, but I really love them both. And his transition from one thing to another is abrupt. He goes from describing a jungle in South America somewhere to where he slept in an old cottage that he and his partner owned, and he just leaps from one, and then there's two blank spaces, and then he leaps into the bed he chose, and it's not a direct transition, but what it does is it goes from like the jungle to the city. It goes from one type of quiet to another type of quiet. Your mind just sort of makes your mind is kind of happy to make the leap. So that was interesting to me, and then I just wanted to I wanted to tell a story about how not to make a transition, which I always notice this. So for years I used to write multimedia shows when I lived in New York City in the 80s and early 90s, and I wrote I wrote a multimedia show for the music industry, and my client. I had said, and then there's this, and I wrote, and then there's. And my client said, I hate it when people use that, and then there's. And I took it out, and ever since then, that was like 45, 50 years ago, I never used that as a transition. And I notice whenever another writer does it, it's really common. It's really common. I mean, I just read a fantastic book. The writer goes, and then there's, and I just like, So it's an easy thing. So I firmly believe in avoiding and then there's. So I can share my paragraph, but maybe I'll do that later. Lauren, you can give your PowerPoint first. I think that'd be a good
Sure.
idea.
Well, I'm not going to do the whole PowerPoint thing, though. I'll pull up a couple slides. But the kinds of transitions that we want to talk about are the ones that are a little harder to create, like what Trebi just came up with, right? She's probably spent, how much time do you think you spent coming up with that transition?
Oh, I worked on it for at least an hour before I had that idea.
Exactly. One transition in a single page, right? Not all of them take that long, but when you get the right one, it does feel incredibly celebratory. I completely agree with that. Sometimes they come quicker, but the kind of transition she's talking about, the kind we want to talk about tonight, are what we call concept transitions. They're less of use of the however, indeeds, and then there was, lastly, finally, in conclusion, despite, or in order to, all these things that are transition words that help clue a reader in that a change is coming in the context, right? Like, we're talking about this and now we're going to switch. Or earlier that year, okay, that's a time transition. We're going back in time. Those kinds of transitions or transitional phrases, words and phrases, are the ones most of us are familiar with and have no trouble putting into our writing. But a good writer strives not to not use them. They are very useful at times, but to get a mix of transitions that create a flow in the content, so that the reader is not constantly feeling the warning coming, but actually doesn't even notice that you have switched gears midstream or to a new idea, a new thought, or a new direction in the story. So one way to get them is this idea that Trebi just, gave a great example of, which is to back off from the narrative, what you're writing, to reflect on what it is you're saying, like speculate a little bit about what you're writing about, and then to go to the next paragraph or where you want to go and see, is there a link between these two things? And we call this, I will pull this up for just a minute now. Whoops, sorry, I got to share. Is it this one? Yeah. Okay. Can you see this?
Not yet. Oh, yeah, there, now we see it.
Now we
Okay.
can.
So the idea is, don't employ, to employ a variety of transitions, not just one. And here's an example of what we would call a concept transition. It's where you use a concept or quotes or themes or subjects to connect completely different story pieces. Sorry, let me make my slideshow. So you don't have to see the rest of it. So this is an example of what we're talking about. This is from Terry Tempest Williams. This is what I came to Africa for, unknowingly to learn the hope of trees. I left the conference and followed Dr. Wangari into the villages of Kenya, where I witnessed for myself the work of women and what it means to grow a forest. We need to work a little more and talk a little less, she said to me, Riley, as we left Nairobi and visited a village very close to her own Kikuyu roots. So see how she's using the subject of Dr. Wangari and the forest roots directly relates to forest, right? So she switched from leaving the conference to giving us a little information about the person she's traveling with. And then in the next paragraph, they're already at the village. So we've got another shift. I watched as women gathered seeds in the folds of their skirts, planting seeds and tending trees. The green, tending trees, goes back to the forest in the prior paragraph or the paragraph before that. Planting seeds goes with roots. So you see how she made a connection between these three different aspects of her story in a very short time frame. She moved it from the conference to the village and who she was with, and linked them all with this concept of growing a village or forest, seeds, and trees. Does that make sense to you? Do you see how she did that? So when you're looking at your pieces, I think I'm going to stop sharing here. Hang on. When you're looking at, okay, go back. When you're looking at your stories and you know that you need to switch now to talk about a specific person or to go back in history or to give a little bit of facts or figures or some descriptive elements that are more technical, look for whatever is in the last paragraph. Look for a theme or a subject or a concept and see if you can create another, the next paragraph, starting with something that has that echo in it. That's how you create a seamless transition. We call these, I call these top to tail transitions, because you take the top paragraph and then the next paragraph and link them in some way. I've also heard them described as hook and eye transitions. If you're a sewer, those are crochet metaphors, I think, but I don't know crochet very well. You don't have to use the same word. It can be a synonym or a more oblique reference. But as long as you're picking up some piece, the subject, the concept, the theme, that refers back and moves forward at the same time, you'll have a good top to tail transition. Sorry, I'm looking at two screens at once. So if you see my face going back and forth, you'll know why. My computer messed up now. Duplicate.
Yeah, well, I just to elaborate a little bit on what Lauren said, something that I have also found useful is to, as a way of making a transition, kind of you can always speculate a little bit on what you've just said. You know, like how were you feeling when that happened that you just described, or was there something more about what you described that you might want to reflect on? What were you wearing? What was somebody else wearing? What was the day like? You know, so just sort of to add a little bit of reflection that doesn't necessarily go in the preceding paragraph, and from then you can maybe find a way to lead into the next paragraph.
Do you want to read your Orion piece now, Trevi?
Yeah, okay. So this was from an essay that I wrote in Orion, and that was later in I can't remember. I put it in some book. And it describes well, I'll tell you what it describes. And then I'll tell you where the transition is. On a clear blue and gold morning in late spring, I leave camp and go off to explore a particularly alluring side canyon. My eyes are dipping up and down between the cliffs, where I hope to spot Anasazi ruins and the dry wash with its smooth stones, the colors of jade, blood, and slate, when a tree moves into my line of vision. I am fully aware of it, as if it has suddenly stepped forth from its seclusion on the bank. Lightning charred, ragged, gouged with holes, obviously a cottonwood in its former life, it demands to be reckoned with. So I think I'm going to do a little, and this you'll find this on the website too. I'm gonna tell you where I wanted to get to, and then I'm going to read you the transition. So where I wanted to get to was this. Impulsively, I feel the urge to celebrate the abundance of gifts this tree gave by offering it a gift of my own. From the wash, I collect stones in the brightest colors I can find and ring them around the base of the tree. I pick wildflowers and place them in the holes pocking the trunk, select shapes of bleached wood and arrange them amid the stones. The bright colors stand out jewel-like against the shiny ebony char. So this is what I did as the transition, and it's a whole paragraph. There is something venerable about a tree struck by lightning. That's what I meant about like speculating a little bit on what you just said. I could have gone just from one paragraph to another, but this I'm speculating. And then what do I mean by that? Well, nakedly it bears its whole history. Life, death, the cause of its death, and sometimes even its survival after death. I try to imagine this tree when it was alive. And then here's another little like transition. How might that tree been when it was alive? Rabbits and deer would have sought it out for its tasty shoots, especially in the winter months when the buds continued to develop. Many birds would have nested in the tree, and owls would have perched in it at night to watch for prey passing underneath. When branches fell off, which would have happened with increasing frequency as the tree got older, woodpeckers, bats, and even bears could have found food and shelter in the hollows. Without question, this tree gave a lot during its long life. So then I leap into making a gift for the tree. So there's a few transitions in there. And you can see that, like I said, I could have gone just from one to the other, but then I opened up into this speculation about the life of the tree.
That's something that that kind of speculating about things is something that I think at least I know Tracy and Margaret might be able to use effectively, because there are likely points where you can put yourself in the story and speculate about what others were thinking, even if you don't know, or about your past self, or about your great grandmother. Or I wonder, did she find the clothes dragging as she went to milk the cow? Did she ever imagine we would one day wear pants? I don't know. Like there's a way in which you can bring some, create a paragraph that's mostly just imaginative, or casting forward or casting back, or just speculating to create a transition between parts to a story. That was a perfect example. So we have a kind of fun, I think, little exercise. We're doing okay on time.
Mm-hmm.
So let me pull it back up.
Is this Robert McFarlane?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, yeah. I just have to cut and paste it. Okay. So here I am going to post in the chat box. Whoops, chat. Sorry. Having a moment tonight. Did I not send that? How is it not working? Sorry, I'm having trouble getting the box. Send.
Box. Do you want me to do it?
Well, can you do it? I can't get it to get off the old one.
Okay, let me see.
Here, let me do it this way. Paste.
Yeah, because I can get it off the email I sent you if
Yeah, I can't get it to work.
All right, let me get it off the email I sent you.
Oh,
Yeah.
I could just share also this.
No, well, here it comes. All right, the lines are all messed up, but you can read it.
Yeah. So I'm going to share it
Okay.
because the lines are messed up, which will make it really hard. Can you see it on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So now these are the three paragraphs. We thought these had some great transitions, the kind we're talking about. So we'd like you to read it and then just jot down what you notice. Where do you see that he's using either a theme or a concept or speculating, or what do you notice about how he uses words to keep the story flowing, even though each one of those paragraphs is an independent thought in the story?
Could you make it bigger?
Sure.
Yeah, it's pretty tiny.
Okay. It's too small. Try to get it on one page,
That's
but now
good.
it's messing it up. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, what are we supposed to be writing down?
I'm just like, what do you notice about the words he uses, the concepts, the subject, whatever, that transition you from one paragraph to the other, even though each one is an independent item?
Okay.
Do you want us to write it in the chat or will we just discuss it
Oh,
after?
we could just discuss it out loud.
Okay.
Do you need more time or are you all done? Okay, great. Well, anyone can start with whatever you notice.
What did you notice?
I noticed that the there was really a change in the tone of what was going on from beginning the first to the third. In the first paragraph, it's very descriptive, very visual, and very active. So there's billowing billowing ice, there's ice lifting, the sea is stormy. People are taking action. They're roping up, acting up, doing things. Then the next one is more of a, oh, I'm standing still, and then all this stuff is happening around me, and I'm more passive, and the crevasses are opening up here and there, and it's intense, and it brings up the idea of the color. And then the last paragraph is pretty scientific and matter of fact. And uh, it's funny. It's kind of like they'd sneak you into reading something sciencey by making it real exciting in the first
Mm-hmm.
paragraph. But you want to know, right? So yeah, it makes sense. I liked it.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I didn't notice any of those things about it, so thank you.
Oh, I missed the whole point.
No,
No, you
did
didn't.
it.
I
You got it.
did. I missed the whole point. You got it.
I really
Yeah,
like,
I think that, oh, go ahead, Margaret.
no, go ahead,
Okay.
Joanna, that's fine.
I was just looking mostly at the words. I like the pace because at the end of the first paragraph, he talks about crevice maze. That leads to crevices open around us. And then at the end of that paragraph, he talks about here is the blue.
Right.
And then he goes into the ice is blue and gets into the educational component. So
Yeah.
there was like this nice kind of wave as
Yeah.
you read it from one paragraph to the next.
I noticed when I was just rereading it that a crevasse is mentioned twice in the second paragraph, right? Which, as you noted, links to the last sentence of the first paragraph. And then it's not mentioned in the third paragraph at all because he's switched to color.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is very instructive for me around changing in the first and second paragraphs, the transition from you know, descriptive narrative to exposition. That's very helpful, I think. And Tracy, I missed your point, which I think is great, about how the first paragraph is packed with action and the second is this moment suspended in time.
Mm-hmm.
That really gives me even more from this piece than in the second
Yeah.
half.
Yeah.
Me too.
Did you pick all that up too, Carol, or did you see anything else in it?
I didn't see anything other than what Joanna and Margaret just spoke about.
Yeah.
And we're gonna move on to talk about pace next. But when Lauren and I were discussing this the other day, and you know, what he does that's so good here, he's describing entering into a really dangerous situation. They're climbing on this massive ice crevasse, which is very, very dangerous. Then he goes, we rope up, axe up, crampon up. You know, it's like, it's brief, it's concise, this is what we do. The consequences of a slip or a trip are now severe. And then the progress slows, blah, blah, blah. We speak less. You know?
Love that.
We speak less. 3 words to say we're not speaking.
Yeah.
We doesn't go. At this point in the discussion, we felt that it would be immaterial to speak any longer.
Yeah. Or we were very nervous, right? Instead of telling us that we were all afraid, he
Right.
says, we speak less. And immediately you get the sense of, oh my God, they're like paying attention to every step. No talking. Like it just brings a whole flood of images in that he could have said we were nervous or we were scared or we started paying attention to our feet. It wouldn't have worked nearly as well.
Yeah.
Really good. Okay. We did ask you all to bring something, and we're going to talk about pacing next. But if anyone brought some of their writing where they thought they had a decent transition or they liked how they worked with a transition, we didn't ask for that specifically. But if any of you did bring something where you have that, would you be willing to read it? We are also going to ask for reading at the end of the next one. This is pacing, but just in case anyone brought one, that they brought it because it had a good transition.
Maybe.
Tracy's going, maybe?
Can't tell.
Can't tell. What's your gut tell you? It's probably right.
I mean, I like the beginning of my piece. Maybe. Maybe it does.
I could
Do you
read
want-
a couple paragraphs.
Okay, great.
My dad, oh, this is a prompt. How would you like to be remembered? My dad actually told me how he would like to be remembered. When we completed our 5 wishes document together, a simplified but legal will and last wishes form, he wrote that he wanted to be remembered as a good father and a good provider. The reality is that he was a good father as far as he was able, having never been parented himself and learning most of his parenting technique in the Army. He loved us very much, there's no doubt about that, and he was a good provider, giving us all a safe and secure childhood, sending us off to college without ever making money a part of the conversation. His primary wish was to leave us an estate when he passed, and though he tried hard, that did not happen. I have gray memories of my dad, but probably not the ones he envisioned. I know my memories of Dad were tempered by some events, not terrible, but memorable, that occurred while he was living with me in his later years and his dementia was starting to kick in. We laugh about it now, and in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't awful. Even though he became forgetful and confused, he was ever the polite, kind man I had always known him to be. My mom is an example of someone who is remembered by how she lived her life. I have wonderful memories of her, tempered only by reflecting that she was a woman in a time where women were rarely allowed to be fully realized. She made many concessions to my dad's wishes in the marriage and earlier in her career. Still, she showed me what it's like to be tough, strong, and resilient. I watched her navigate through a cancer diagnosis and surgery, and afterward live her life with a renewed awareness of its brevity and value. She was an innovative problem solver and willing to take a hammer to the wall if she felt that a new shelf should be built in. She was creative and skilled in many crafts, and she was remarkably in touch with nature and the value of the cycles of our world and our lives. I believe I remember her in a way that would make her happy.
See, that's nice. You used how your father wanted to be remembered and how your mother will be remembered. I mean, that was a really nice transition.
Thanks. I didn't get to the part where about how I think I'll be remembered.
That might be harder, huh?
I suspect I'll be remembered as the crazy old lady everyone had to keep an eye on to make sure I wasn't climbing up a ladder with something sharp or unwieldy in my hand.
That's good. I would say that I thought the jump between your dad and your mom was a little abrupt.
Mm,
And there might be just a way you could work with one sentence around the theme that comes out in that first line about you remember how she lived rather than what she did. That really, really, really worked. But I'm wondering if there's a way you could play with that somehow at the beginning of the sentence, like my maybe it's something to do with I don't know, but like with that bringing that concept in a little bit more fully in the transition between your dad and your mom.
hmm I probably can't do it right now while y'all are sitting.
No. God,
I
no.
didn't mean that.
I might take an hour.
Yeah, and that's very interesting that Lauren makes that comment because I thought it was a really great transition. I thought it worked as it was.
Okay, so there you get two totally different
Yeah.
opinions. Two different editors.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Cool.
Everybody's going to have their own way they react to what we write.
Right.
Everyone has a
Okay.
different lens.
Anyone else? Like, what did what did others think about that?
I thought it was beautiful. I wanted to learn more. Yeah, you did. Yeah, I didn't notice anything obviously like I was hoping for with the transition between the two. And sometimes I do better if I'm looking at it myself. I need to see it and hear it. I need both things to be really, to be positive, to be a critical thinker and giver of feedback. It helps for me to see it too.
I loved that line, Tracy, where you said she could wield a hammer to put up a shelf if need be.
Yeah.
And I wondered if there was something about your dad, like shelf or hammer or wall or something that would like be that transition.
Well, he would come home from work and he would see stuff that she had done while he was at work, and he would say, "Oh, oh, I see something's happening in the dining room."
Yeah.
That's a great idea, Carol. That could be your
Yeah, that's
transition.
Yeah,
cool.
that is a good idea.
That is cool.
That is a really good idea. And then you can go on with the sentence you had about how she would be remembered.
Yeah.
That's really good.
That's a great idea.
He would also say very politely, "Did you cut your own hair today?"
And was the answer frequently yes?
Yeah. Yeah. She couldn't see the back very well.
You gotta get that detail in. That's great.
That's cute.
And that's really
Any-
cute.
Anything that gives us the images of people is fantastic. I mean, that says so much about her personality, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she didn't have time for that kind of mess.
And she was thrifty.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tracy, I thought it was beautifully written, and it made me want to know just the kinds of things that others are bringing up, specific details about them. And of course, we don't know the whole story that is the context for those two paragraphs or pieces of the story, but bringing them even more to life with their quirks and idiosyncrasies would be, I'd love to hear more of that.
Right. Well, they're on my list. For this class, I've started with my grandmother, but mom and dad are both on my future list.
Great.
So, one of the things that really worked about what you read was the pacing of it was great. I don't know if you worked on that on purpose, but it really worked. As you read it, it just had a very lively feel to it. It got more lively when you got to your mom, which was, I think, perhaps intended. Well, I don't know if you intended it, but your writing picked up. There was more crammed into the space. I thought the pacing was great. So this leads us into talking about pacing and some of the ways you can affect it. Most stories, when they break down in the middle. That's because we often start with a great idea, we have a good ending, but when we get to the kind of nuts and bolts of it, or the meat of it, or the middle of it, we can lose steam. That's where stories will tend to bog down, whether it's personal narrative or family history or an exposition, a more fact-based story. So some of the things, especially if you have a story that's not got a gripping theme from beginning to end, like it's not a story of heroic overcoming of the odds and obstacles, but about the beauty of a particular kind of yoga practice, right? Which has its own kind of rhythm and beauty to it, but it's not necessarily going to electrify people. So some of the things that we can do to make our writing more, it's really is more like a song or more like poetry without it being either. And these are relatively easy things to do, which I think if we looked back at Tracy's piece, we would see quite a few of them. One is to vary your sentence length. You notice in that Robert Macfarlane piece that 3-word sentence at the end was so good. And then also he used very short sentences for impact. anytime you use a short sentence on its own or within a paragraph, it has an immediacy that draws people to it. It creates a rhythm to the writing that is purposeful and really works. Using single sentences as paragraphs for impact is another way. When someone reads a single sentence, it stops us. It makes us just kind of like pay attention in a way we otherwise wouldn't. Dialogue or quotes. This can work because it varies the voice. So particularly if you've got a long block of explanation or text, you can vary it with dialogue. It could be even inner dialogue or a quote. Playing with words. This is where we get to the alliterations and parallelisms.
Like crampon up,
Crampon
all
up.
that stuff he said.
Right. What did he say? Post up, crampon up, something else up. Exactly. Anytime you use parallelisms or alliterations, it creates a kind of sing-song effect in the words, even if they're not necessarily sing-songy to begin with.
Lauren,
So-
what did you say about dialogue or quotes buries the narrative? Did you say?
Yeah, it varies the voice a little bit. So even if
yeah.
you're in a story and suddenly you have an inner dialogue with yourself,
Yeah.
it varies the voice slightly from the typical your usual writing voice.
Yeah.
And that break can be super useful in the middle of a story
Yeah.
because it kind of wakes the reader up.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here's something slightly different, even though they won't notice it that way. So you can use inner dialogue that way if you don't have a thought or a quote by someone else. Or it can be a conversation like you're having with the truck driver who's taking you somewhere, or sitting at a breakfast table with your mom, or thinking about a student in a class, or whatever it is. Creative punctuation is another way, using exclamation points or semicolons or colons. M dashes. I love M dashes. They're going out of favor because AI uses them. It's one thing people complain about with AI, and I love M dashes. I use them all the time. So, does everyone know what an M dash is? It's when you separate out a thought instead of putting it in parentheses. It's an independent clause, so you put 2 lines on either side of it.
When I was having an AI check some of my work in the early in my process, it did that a lot, and I didn't. Unlike
Oh.
you, I don't like it. So I
Yeah.
spent a lot of time taking it out, and then I just quit using AI. I only use AI to check spelling.
Yeah, it does like them too much.
I'm putting in the chat what it looks like. It's different from a hyphen. It's a little longer. On a Mac, you make it by clicking Option, Shift, and the underline sign up at the top. Or sometimes you can just make 2 hyphens and it'll make an M dash. And
In
the
a
little
Word
one is called an
document,
N
you do
dash.
that. I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head to give you an example, and I cannot come up with it. I use them all the time.
Yeah, me
But
too.
if I could find one quickly, I'll show you. But it would be something like the car that went down the street, ... the not the street where I lived, but next to it, ... was going too fast. So the independent clause in the middle is separated out from the sentence by the dashes. That wasn't a great example, but it worked. What we tend not to use are parentheses. Parentheses slow people down. M dashes keep people moving through the content. Parentheses actually will stop the eye. So in most creative nonfiction, you won't see it. Of course, there's exceptions to every rule. You might find an author you totally love that uses it all the time. But typically, do you use parentheses very often, Trebi?
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, sometimes.
I
Not
do
as much as
too.
M dashes.
I have quite a few parentheses in mine, and I will say that the computer guy who's reading it just skips over it.
Oh, well, see, I mean, in my opinion, which is not necessarily, it's not necessarily universal opinion, M dash makes something a little bit more immediately connected to the rest of it than a parenthesis.
Yeah. Yeah. So, the number one thing you can do to affect the pacing of your story is to, as Tracy noted earlier, read it out loud. Read your work out loud. You could have someone read it back to you if you want to get a program. You will immediately see where it slows down or bogs down. And then you can go back in and try one of these tactics to see if you can create a little bit more urgency or immediacy or excitement in the content, regardless of what the content is. I'll tell a brief personal story about this. When I used to cover international economics, I would have to go to these giant, like G10 conferences and World Bank and blah, blah. There'd be really literally hundreds of journalists in the room, in the press pen, we called it. It was always downstairs in the basement of some godforsaken conference center where they would just have urns of coffee and stale donuts and, 400 of us typing away. And it was really noisy. And it wasn't because people were talking to each other. It's because journalists talk out loud. They're reading their work out loud as they're writing. And you don't have to read every word. If you get in the habit of doing it, you'll see that it's like speed reading. You'll start to just read out loud a couple words, but in your head, you're reading it out loud. And that's pretty much all. I think pretty much all professional writers read their work out loud because you just pick up the parts that really flow well, and you'll pick up the parts where it stumbles or there's too big a gap, you need a better transition, or it's just bogging down in repetitive sentence length or repetitive language or something else.
Or you notice that you've repeated something, which your eyes might not necessarily catch.
Right. Does everyone know what we mean by parallelism and alliteration? We've talked about those a few times.
I could use a brief review.
Would you like a quick review?
I would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alliteration is when you start, you have a repetitive sound in a sentence. So it's often S. S is a great one for alliterations because so many words start with S and it makes such a sound, right? So you might have, I can't think of one off the top of my head either. I should have had a description, should have had one. But it's any time that you have a repeated sound in a sentence and it makes things sound very musical.
Well, okay, so somebody is giving a long, boring talk. He's pontificating, preaching, and posturing.
Perfect.
Nice.
Perfect.
Nice.
And parallelism is when you have a repetition of words together. So a perfect example is the one from the Robert Macfarlane where, what did he say? Trebi, do you remember?
I'm trying to remember where I just looked at it. Yes, he said, we rope up,
axe up,
crampon up.
Yeah, we rope up, axe up, and crampon up. So he's using word phrasing the exact same way. It's usually very often done 3 times, though sometimes even more. When Sherry read her story out loud last time, she had one in the middle of her story where she was talking about her daughter, and she said, Madison is something. Madison is this, and Madison is that. And it create the repetition on purpose creates a sing-song quality that we tend to read and like without even noticing. The last thing is really obvious, but especially in today's world, quite used quite often, which is use subtitles. Like make use of white space by separating out things to give a kind of pause between major sections. That can help with the flow of a piece rather than having, text go on and on and on and on. You can use subtitles or even just white space that separates two lines or two dots that will help break up content a little bit.
Yeah, and another advantage of the subtitle technique is that you help yourself to clarify what you're writing about. I mean, it might be every couple of pages or every 10 pages or whatever, but it's really a pretty good idea. I had an editor suggest that for a book of mine, and it really made a difference.
What would the difference between a subtitle and a chapter?
Well, you might have several subtitles within a chapter. Like you might say, for example, you might have, this is about my grandmother coming to America. So one subtitle might be, she makes the decision. What does she pack? Oh, she packs her clothes. She gets on the ship, things like that. So it's divided into that, and maybe the next chapter is now she arrives at Ellis Island or wherever. So the subtitles are bits within the chapter.
They work with essays too, especially because most essays are published online. And if you look at a long essay that's, 4,000 words, it can seem overwhelming, and subtitles really help.
Yeah, I think they encourage people to read things.
They help with.
So I'm confused. Do you put the subtitle at the beginning of a paragraph for a transition? Is that what you mean? How you use it?
Not so much for a transition, but to help with the flow of your piece, so that it doesn't get bogged down.
Okay.
You can use them as transitions, but generally you want to write a good transition, even if you've got a subtitle that indicates a shift. Some people use them for that, so that they're lazy because they're lazy and they don't want to go to the trouble to find a good transition. But it's more just to break up very long pieces of text.
Okay.
To help with the flow. Is that helpful? I'm just going to look quickly at the PowerPoint. Oh, I wanted to show just one quick thing. So I'm going to share this again. So this is an example of, and there's a lot of examples in this PowerPoint, so you can look back at it. It might help you, but this probably isn't big enough for you to even see. Darn it. I don't know how to make it bigger.
What if you
Whoops, now I did it from the wrong place. Hang on.
that work?
No, you can't see it. It's too small, isn't it?
Kinda.
Yeah, sorry. And I can't cut and paste that because I
Can you make it bigger in that bottom right-hand side where it says 81%?
Oh, can you see it now?
Yeah,
Yes.
big.
Yeah,
That's a
think
whole
you
lot
lost
better.
Keywords though.
that's
There you
great.
go.
Yeah.
Right there is the
Okay.
That's so good.
That's cute.
So I love that because, I mean, when you're reading it silently, you hear it in your head,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's what happens. We don't even think about it when we talk about reading. We don't think about how we actually hear it. We hear a voice in our head. It's just not conscious. But when you read that paragraph, you get it. So we invited you to to bring something tonight, whether it was something that you thought you did a particularly that you liked, that you thought, oh, I did a good job with pacing and flow or transitions with this. Tracy's already shared. But then we also suggested that you could bring something that you might want help with, like that you're not sure about. Does this work? Or how could I make this better? And since there's just 3 people left who haven't shared, it seems like maybe this is a time to offer that up, because we were going to go into breakout sessions, but since there's so few of us, why don't we just stay in the group if that works for you all?
Yeah.
Did everyone bring something?
Yeah,
Great. Do you want to start, Carol?
sure.
Is your dog okay?
Yeah, I think she might have like got stung by a bee or something. She's like hiding and she couldn't stop sneezing for a while, but I keep checking on her and she's okay. She's just like,
Good.
what happened?
Okay, gosh.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Let's see. So this is a piece that I think I need some help with, and I launched into this kind of long beginning, and I'm not sure if the long beginning actually gets to be repeated enough towards the end. So I think that's like the specific piece.
Okay.
Is there like a bookend thing that you're feeling or that you're hearing? I knew that I needed to drink as much water as was good for my system while we were there. I would chug the water in my Nalgene so that I could fill up at the spigot outside the visitor center whenever I walked by. So far, I topped up a good couple of times. It was not a particularly logical choice, but it was an idea I wanted to explore based upon a recent article that I'd read. Intercellular body water is renewed on average every 5 days, and it takes about 5 minutes for water to enter your body. So if I kept drinking only the water from the spigot, would my structured water, the molecules that make up fascia and the interstitium, be informed by the earth of this location? Would the form of my body know this place differently, even intimately? Well, having no idea how I might measure this, but dedicated to my experiment, I would fill up and top off over the course of the next few days. I had time to change half the water in my body. It was March 11th, 2025. We were in Hawaii at the Volcano National Park. It was early morning on the South Trail, rolling mists diffusing the view, but there was no dousing my excitement at being there. With few visitors this early, we were taking advantage of our bodies still on East Coast time, fully absorbing this unusual and captivating landscape. In the deep caldera of Kauai, spreading out at least a mile in all directions, with high mottled gray walls ascending 500 feet in the east, steam percolating from the floor, seemingly out of small fissures and little pockets where the pressure was building in the subterranean world. Occasionally, we would see a glow pop out of the floor below and train our binoculars to where that had arisen, and it would be gone. The potential for more lava was real. Even an eruption could happen. Look now, we would yell, repeating the procedure, but the movement was so fleeting. We walked on, finding an offering site from the indigenous Hawaiians to Pele, the goddess of creation and destruction. The fire goddess herself was here below this insipid gray calm. Her bird consorts we spotted in the air, their white-winged bodies and their long tails clear evidence that Koa Kea were keeping company this morning. Since December 2024, Kilauea had erupted episodically. So far, 8 of them had spluttered and spurted and then crescendo to highs. Some were short in duration and others many hours. I had been praying to Pele herself long before we arrived. I wanted to ingest waters, see her fires, hold her molten paths as rocks. Being with this form of molten movement delivered from the very center of the earth was a profound desire, an urgent desire. This was change in rock time. To receive this medicine in this place as healer and human was an act of grace in this profound worship to the world. I could have sat there and watched the entire morning unfold, yet my hungry belly and eager friends took me back to our lodging, where while we made breakfast, we tuned into the live camera that the Park Service had placed high above the caldera with views into the south vent, where we had seen the fleeting glows, and the north vent beyond. The forkful of eggs and greens almost choked me as I turned to the screen to see the lava erupting from the vent, fully erupting high. Not spurts, not starts, a real stream gaining height as we watched. I rallied my friends and downed breakfast while running to the car. I had to be there. It was the 9th episode. It could end anytime. Back at the park with a newly filled water bottle, we took the quickest route, walking through the volcano house to the outer deck. I stopped, struck by beauty, sobbing in unbidden tears, my ears taking in the chanting notes of someone praying with the old songs. I staggered outside, the living definition of awestruck, my own devotion coursing through my veins. With halting steps, I staggered forward to lean against the cool stone wall. What a sight! The roar of the earth emanating from the high red lava fountain that was a mile away. I could feel the sound inside of my body, a distant low rumble that people wanted to liken to an engine, our mechanistic minds making the vast and unknowable gathered under a car bonnet. Didn't they know this is how the earth roars? Pele was manifest before us, shifting, turning, oozing, moving unhurriedly in rock time as ambling lava fresh from the air fell. What magnificence! There, spied in our binoculars, were the white companion birds, coaqui, swooning, sweeping, and careening along the hot updrafts, leisurely consorting, making destruction and new earth. The dance went on. We changed our location, closer to the roar now, and seeing the birds with our naked eyes and falling, the twisting lava. We changed our location closer to the roar now, seeing the birds with our naked eyes and the falling, twisting lava's light and shadow parts. I was wrapped in the holy and extraordinary rock time, pervading and expanding. Oh, I haven't finished this, so I'm just going to stop there. I have one more paragraph that's a little more clunky.
Well, that certainly gives us a good feeling for it.
Okay.
So right off the bat, one thing that occurs to me, I think it would have more power if you put more descriptions in of the place, both of that caldera and of the lava, but not from your point of view. Like just to describe it. Like, the gray cliffs rise up, the soil is this way, the air percolates with whatever, rather than I see this, I see that,
Yep.
we see that.
Yep.
And then when you do describe your own physical reactions to it, it'll be more of like a counterpoint.
Great. That's great.
I was mesmerized, having been there, not having seen a lava eruption. I thought you did a beautiful job with the interweaving of the kind of historical part, the fact part, and the spiritual part, the connected to the bird and the prayers of the people. You wove that in very nicely. Like it wasn't pointed out so much as just woven in. Like when you heard
Yeah.
the prayers when you walked out, the bird you keep seeing. Um, I did see a place for perfect alliteration when you talked about the birds swooping. I think you said swooning, sweeping, and careening. I'd
Yeah.
change that careening to another S.
Yeah. Great.
A simple thing. Um, the water metaphor and the lava. Those are two.
Mhm.
You know, the lava. The threads of the veins of lava and the water that you're ingesting to become one with the earth in that place. I
Nice.
think you can do even more with.
Okay.
You mentioned the water at the beginning a lot, and then you mention it once more,
Yeah.
and then I assume it comes back at the end.
Yeah.
I would find a way to weave it in
Okay.
just one more, at least one more time, and maybe in some way reflect, ref, get the lava and the water.
Yeah. On a rivulet. Yeah. Yeah.
And not, it doesn't have to be all the time, but just like
Right. Right.
the connection this is the lifeblood of the earth.
Yeah.
You've kind of
Right.
made that point,
Right.
and it's like the water is our lifeblood. So something with that.
Right. Yeah, and even finding a way to make more of that contrast between the fire and the water,
Great.
and how it's moving in you,
Mm.
how they're both moving in you.
Yeah.
Cool. That's so helpful.
It's really a beautiful piece.
It is.
Thank you. Yeah.
I would just add, Carol, that I think because I thought the water piece was absolutely an intriguing, unique idea. And then your descriptions in Hawaii, where I've never been, where just I go, oh my God, I want to go there. This is incredible. If there was some way to link the water and the lava, as both Lauren and Trebia were describing, but I would have something early in a transitional, a little more in the transition between the two would help me, because each piece is somewhat long. And I don't think there's anything to shorten in them. But it did feel like quite an abrupt jump to me.
Yeah. Okay.
I kept working on what was the relationship when you were
Right.
well into your second paragraph.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. That's helpful, Margaret.
That is helpful.
I did love some of your specific descriptions, like water and interstitium and, you know, having the fork in your hand with the eggs and the green and you look up. So I thought some of your specific descriptions were really great.
Thank you.
I really like the idea of replacing the water in our body, becoming with the space that we're in. That was great.
Thank
So-
you.
We only have a little bit more time, so we want to have time for Margaret and Joanna to read something. If they'd like, if they would.
You want to go, Margaret? And then I'll go.
I have something that I don't know if it works, and it's not quite as it's not that long, so maybe I'll jump in if that's okay. We jumped from the Jeep with our air sampling and other environmental measurement equipment as the manager's Jeep pulled up to the Brighteners production division. We saw men dumping bags of powdery chemicals into giant rusty tanks of liquid suspended between 2 stories of a steel building. A yellowish opaline brew was piped through the tanks through filters that looked like huge accordions, nearly half the size of the workers. Men raked the pasty mash from the filters with hand tools, then shoveled it into drums. Sticky yellow iridescence coated the handrails and surfaces of the equipment. One of my roles on the investigative team was to gather information about the chemicals used in the Brightners division and about the workers' jobs, which dictate how they must interact with those chemicals. I approached a chemical process operator to ask about his many duties. Did you say that it's part of your job to get inside those reactor tanks and clean out the layers of chemicals stuck on the inside? I asked one of the operators while white knuckling my clipboard and planting my steel-toed shoes across a yellow rivulet running along the steel-planked floor. Yes, ma'am, we get in with a ladder through those little portholes. I scribbled notes, bracing my clipboard horizontally along the rim of my belt as I take in a deep breath. What's it like to do one of those cleanouts? Clipboard still in my hand, but slowly tilting toward my knees as my breath deflates. Well, it takes hours to scrape and chip away the cooked on chemicals. Some of us have health problems, especially after the tank cleanout. Oh, I said, pushing down a smothering sense of claustrophobia as I envisioned the inside of one of those tanks. A siren reverberated in my skull, ringing an alarm about potential lack of oxygen. Ever the professional, the chemical operator found a silver lining. Well, good thing we don't have to do a tank clean out but once in a while, maybe every month or two. He continues the positive note. I transferred to the Brightners division because at least the chemicals here don't burn your skin like in a lot of the other divisions. My breathing catches and my clipboard drops to a useless vertical position, landing gear on a distressed aircraft.
Really good. I liked how you brought in how his demeanor, how he's ever the professional. Because I was wondering about that. Like, how is this guy answering these questions? And he seems like cheerful and amenable and sort of looking at the bright side, which really comes through the way you've done it.
That's interesting you say looking on the bright side, since this is the Brightners division. I thank you.
I'd be curious to know about what they wore when they went in the tank.
Good.
Good idea. Good idea.
I really enjoyed the clipboard as being like the barometer for your own feeling and emotional state too.
Mhm.
Yeah, barometer. That's a really good phrase for it.
Yeah, like when you say your breath stopped, that was really getting into your emotional piece.
So the clipboard seemed like an okay vehicle for the emotional experience, not
Yeah.
Yeah,
It really worked.
it really works.
Yeah, that was quite creative. I would never have thought of that. But once you started using it, when you first mentioned it, I was like, wonder why she's mentioning that. And then as it became the backbone of your experience, it really worked.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like the ending line, putting down the landing gear.
Yeah.
Do you have a specific question? Because I'm not coming up with anything like, what do I think it needs? I'm not sure.
well, I didn't realize, but there were a few things I was doing that I think we learned tonight, and so thank you for the lesson. Like changing the pacing of the description, like the worker speaks, and then there's my thought about what he's saying, and dialogue in general, and it really helps to try out this, the clipboard, and then in the end the metaphor of just landing gear on its distressed aircraft, because that's what I began to see in my head, but sometimes what we see starts to have coherence internally, but makes no sense whatsoever to someone trying to follow. So I think those were some of my main questions.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
very, very good.
Oh, thank you.
The one thing you might play with, and I don't know if this would add to it or maybe it would be a distraction, is that if you're having an inner dialogue, like we're getting your experience through your breath. You know, you can't breathe. You've got a bit of claustrophobia. The clipboard's moving around us, which is a great kind of visual of you getting more and more tense and understanding the seriousness of what's going on. But there might be a place for you to put a little bit of your internal, like when he said that so cheerfully, and did you think, oh shit, you know, they're going in once a month, you know, or I don't know if that would work, but it might, the contrast between what he's saying in his, you know, as if this is business as usual and your growing awareness that this could be really bad, is you might be able to play that up even a little more.
Great, thank you.
Joanna.
Okay. So I'll read you my most raw section. The point of my essay was about being lost on a beach as a 6-year-old. It has taken me months to get there. And so I feel like it needs to be more developed. So this is my most raw section, and it's about being on a beach. All right. I remember I loved looking out across the ocean, staring at the horizon and wondering who was staring back at me. In my daydream, she was a young girl like me who knew the songs of the sea, the appetite of the gulls, the rhythmical slap slap of flip flops walking across the sand, the briny taste of salty lips, and most importantly, what it was like to be different. It may have been these thoughts that prompted me to walk along the beach one day. I was 6 years old and I longed to find this girl. I felt that if I walked far enough, we would somehow meet and there would be instantaneous recognition of each other because of the secrets we shared. When one feels alone in the world, there is a deep place of yearning, a steady ache that throbs at every moment, casting its line of hope out into a vast sea, hoping to reel in just one small answered prayer. And so I walked, my reference points being the houses beyond the dunes, varied in color and lined up like welcome gifts. A few scattered families along the beach, the sand to catch my footprints, and the ocean, my companion, who would guide me as I set out on my quest. The physical reality was that in general, I could not walk far. The reason being unknown until later in life, when I learned that I had limited blood circulation flowing to my legs. I had always believed I was simply not as strong as other children, and so had developed a way to walk and rest. When I was with others, I adapted my walk, and when I needed those restful moments, I would make up an excuse that we were stopping to look, see, and listen to whatever was around us. And as an adult, I would call this relishing in the moment. I can see my child self, face poised with determination, as I set out on my trek, my movements paced. I remember starting, then stopping as the pain would build up. In those wondrous resting moments, I experienced what I have come to now recognize as a meditative presence. I was me and everything around me. I was the energetic sandpiper scattering about, chasing the waves and foraging for food. I was the starfish, slow and pulsating, with well-coordinated movement, waiting in the tide pool. I was the seagull, proudly taking flight from the peak of a distant rock formation. I was wind and sky, embracing the sea, who in turn was beckoning to sand, who effortlessly was shifting and moving, always in a ceaseless dance. I was my sister, strong and knowing. I was my father, curious and daring. I was my mother, simply witnessing and waiting to unfold. It was as if nature and I were each other's stories, tales of beginnings, survival, determination, pain, loneliness, healing, the ingredients of all that lives, stirred together like my grandmother's big bowl of cookie dough, shaped and baked to golden perfection, tasting in the end like sweet awe. As the air touched my face and the sun nourished the newly scattered freckles on my face, There was a moment when I suddenly realized I had no idea how long and how far I had walked. Like all curiously perfect days, there was always something that pulls you back: gravity, pain, a hint of fear that the moment will end, and mostly a feeling that you are lost. Looking around, I recognized nothing. The dunes seemed to be hiding the once viewed homes, like secrets that should never be revealed. The gulls above seemed disinterested. I held nothing for them. The waves were loud and booming with each deliberate crash. Gone was the tender humming lullaby. The people walking quickly by me did not know my story. I was not their child. I was not their sister. Pacing back and forth, up and down the beach, feeling tiny in an immense world, I walked with these abandoned feelings until I saw the face of my home. My father seemed to have risen out of the sand from nowhere, standing at me with inexplicable joy on his face. And for a quick moment reflected in his eyes, I also saw the girl I had been seeking and longing for. While wandering along this ever-changing beach.
Well, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
I have just two suggestions.
Yes.
They're both very related. In the beginning, you say when one is lonely.
Yes.
I would keep that personal. You know, how
Okay.
do you know loneliness? And then at the very end, you talk about like something about like when you're lost, you think this or that, but make it your experience because it's
I
such
like
a
that.
deep personal experience. You want the whole thing to be about you.
I like that.
I have a quick suggestion too, which is similar to what Trebi's saying. It's so powerful, Joanna. It's really, really, really good. But anything that detracts from the immediacy of the story itself, you might just look for pieces that are in there that don't need to be there. Like when you mentioned as an adult, I thought of this as your meditative state. You had a name for
Okay.
it.
Right,
That
right, right.
that that took me away from the child.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and it's interesting, and it might come back into some
Interesting.
other piece because it's an explanation, but it did, I was so in that little girl. I've never, I wasn't lost on a beach, but oh my God, so many of the other feelings I could relate to. And see, anything that takes you kind of away from that, you want to
Mhm.
strip out.
Yeah. I think I was thinking that, oh, I needed to try to explain what was happening.
Yeah.
So, but maybe I don't need to do that, is what you're saying. So I like that. That's really good. Okay.
I think I don't know how others felt, but I understood what you were saying about, taking these pauses and feeling part of the world around you and it being a part of you.
Yeah, I didn't. I thought that your reference to that you didn't know what was happening with your blood circulation. I mean, that's
Mhm.
relevant because then it gives
Yeah.
people an
Yeah.
idea of what's going on.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
I really, I'll say it like this. I really enjoyed feeling the level of emotion that was in you as you were reading it. Like that
Oh,
also was really instructive. And there was a, maybe it was a whole paragraph, I don't know, but in the very beginning, there were some lines that I was like, and whose voice is this?
mhm.
Maybe I needed like another little reference point of like, this is the 6-year-old girl.
Okay.
And maybe it was like you talked about your parents, and I was like, well, wait,
Mhm.
who are you now?
Okay. Interesting.
Wow. Well, we're up on 9 o'clock. I have to say, this is
Mhm.
my absolute favorite part of these of doing this. I never wanted to end. I just want to keep hearing your
Mhm.
stories all night long. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Really,
it's very
really good.
exciting. I mean, you're all
Mhm.
really, really doing beautiful work. It's very
So
exciting.
good. Really, really good. You have no
I mean,
idea.
really good. It's really good. It's not just kind of okay, good for what it is. It's really good.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah, honestly, I have heard and read, oh God, hundreds and hundreds of these things. You guys are doing great.
Thank
Really
you.
good.
It was also really helpful to say to myself, I am doing my 2,000 words and I'm just writing.
Yes. Yes. I like that boundary. Like, do
Yeah,
it.
that was, yeah.
Have it ready. That
Yeah.
helps. That helps me too.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to quickly run through Trevi's going to talk about the nature walk, and then we'll talk about. I'm not going to actually. I'm likely not to be there next session for a scheduling conflict. My son and his family are coming in, and I have to pick them up at the Syracuse airport that day. So if they're late, I'll be on the call, but otherwise, Trevi will be handling it on her own. But it's a topic she knows super well.
Right.
Yeah, we're going to talk about publishing self, or whether you want to try and find a publisher, like who to get to help you design what you're doing, how to write a proposal, all kinds of things like that. So come with questions.
Yes.
And for the nature walk this time, we're just going to invite you to talk to a nature being, or perhaps your future reader, and ask them their opinion about what you're doing so far. You know, what's working, and what might I do differently? I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay, well, thank